I started the day writing a letter from my parents, playing down the stairs foil, of course. But after the task was done, I decided that the faster I caught up in my lessons, the better. Rick scurried for the study room as soon as we finished having breakfast, so I knew where to find him. But he hadn't invited me to join him, so I wasn't sure if I was welcomed or not to study with him. I still wasn't sure if he was shy or if he didn't like me much and presence annoyed him. As for myself, I didn't think I was really shy. I only felt a bit awkward with people I wasn't acquaintance of. But after I had spoken with someone a little bit, I usually started feeling comfortable around them. Perhaps Rick was more or less like that, and he only needed the chance to spend more time with me to start opening up. That's what I wished, at least. And okay, I was being selfish right then. Apart from wanting a better relationship with my roommate, I really needed his help with some of my subjects. During the whole week, we hadn't been starting to work on a group tasks, so I couldn't find the time to ask him to help me individually. Deciding to take the chance, I breathed deeply, grabbed my books, and crossed the corridor that separated me from the study room. What was the worst that could happen? Okay, the possibility of being rejected was nice, but I should try anyway. As I expected, Rick was leaning over his books and handwritten notes spread over the table. He kept worrying his fringe, turning his usually neat hair into a mess. I chuckled at this unknown face of his and sat down in front of him. Startled, Rick raised his eyes from his notes, saw me, and glanced around as if looking for something. I copied his reaction, studying the room around us. We were practically alone in the study room, with just another table occupied by a small group of our classmates. I guessed almost everybody was at the cricket match outside. Sorry, I didn't want to startle you. Can I sit down here? Rick hesitated a moment before nodding weakly. Oh, I was forcing myself on him. That wasn't what I meant to do at all. Frowning, I started to stand up. Oh no, sit down. You don't need to leave. No, sorry, I don't want to bother you. You're being kind enough to tolerate me in your study group. I can sit at another table. No, please sit down. You just caught me by surprise, that's all. I didn't want to be rude. I sat down again, still unsure of what to do. Then, can I study with you? Yes, of course. It's just... He stopped as if he had said too much. I cocked my head to one side, curious. It's just... what? Nothing at all. Oh, come on, you have been acting as if I annoy you since the first moment we met. It's okay if you don't like me. I can't accept that everybody likes me. It's not like that. Realizing he had raised his voice, he looked around, self-conscious. It's not that I don't like you, I assure you. His cheeks turned a delicate pink, and I had to hide a grin under my hand. It must be bothersome being so pale that even the smallest issue made you blush. But he looked really cute like that. Don't laugh at me. I tried not to smile, but seeing him frowning with his face still redder wasn't making it easy. I'm sorry, I'm not making fun of you, I swear. Tell me, what's wrong then? Why you seem so nervous when I'm around? Rick groaned and covered his face with his hands. It must be something I do. Some annoying habit of mine. Please tell me what it is, and I will try to avoid it. You are doing nothing wrong. He was still covering his face, and I could barely hear him. I grabbed one of his hands and pulled it down. He blinked and studied the table, avoiding my eyes, clearly very embarrassed. Okay, if I must tell you, but please promise me that you won't tell Monty. That caught me by surprise. Monty? Why? The reason I don't talk more with you, well, Monty asked me not to do it. Why would he do that? The other boys in the study room shushed us and leaned over the table closer to Rick and repeated in a whisper, Why would Monty do that? Because he likes you a lot and he wants to have you all to himself. I frowned. That didn't make any sense to me. It was true that Monty had been the whole week by my side, helping me at first to feel at home in St. Michael's, and then helping me to move around with my sprained ankle. He had been friendly from the first moment, and I also liked him back a lot. He was cheerful, kind, and fantastic company. But did that mean I couldn't be friends with anyone else? What bullshit. Look, I'm fond of Monty, but we just met a week ago. It isn't as if he was my best friend since childhood. I will be in St. Marcos for the whole year, so I think we need more friends beside Monty. And although he's really great, you're awesome as well. If I thought his pale skin had come back to its normal tone just a minute before, he turned a deeper red again at my words. What? I mean it. You're so clever and organized, and you know so much. In class you always know all the answers before the teacher tells us. He studied his hands with downcast eyes. That is nothing. I'm not funny or cool like Damien and Monty. Well, I'm not either. I shrugged, and when Rick dared to look at me at last, I offered him my widest smile. After a moment, he finally smiled back at me. A tiny child smile, but it felt immensely relieved. So, what about we study together, or just hang out without telling Monty? After all, we don't have to tell him everything we do. He nodded with enthusiasm. Agreed. Then, you want me to help you with the subjects you're behind, right? Okay, it was my turn to blush like an idiot, because being less than decent in math and language compared to that genius in front of me, that was embarrassing. To my utter surprise, Rick chuckled at my reaction. What's with that face? It's my sorry for being so dumb face, I guess. Don't put it like that. You aren't dumb. You just need a bit of help. That I will gladly provide. I grinned happily. Really? You don't mind? Of course not. You know, as long as Monty doesn't know. I nodded, and we started to go over my books. It was a really fruitful day. With Rick by my side, I felt I could really catch up with my classmates in all my subjects. We took a short break to have lunch and back to study for half the afternoon. The one thing that I couldn't take out of my mind was Monty and his reaction. Was he bullying Rick? I couldn't understand why he told Rick not to befriend me, and why Rick would follow Monty's orders either. I didn't know how I should react. I didn't want to confront Monty and lose him as a friend. He has a good mate, and I really enjoyed spending time with him. And he was generous and always willing to help. Perhaps I just need to let the time pass and get to know both Monty and Rick better. With that in mind, I decided to take a walk by the woods behind the school and get some fresh air before dinner time. The sun was already setting behind the mountains at the other side of the town, and the light was golden and peach-colored between the leaves of the trees. The weather was still warm, and it felt nice to walk through the peaceful woods. I still limped, of course, but decided a short walk wouldn't hurt my ankle. I was going to overexert it after all. I followed the dirt path until its end. The path finished at a metal fence where the woods kept going at the other side for some miles more until it reached the main road that ran through the Shire. The shadows of the trees were starting to stretch on the ground, and the air was growing colder, so I thought it was a good moment to come back to the school. Dinner time would be soon anyway. I turned back and limped through the path, trying to keep a good rhythm. Afterwards, when I remembered that moment, I swear I could only hear the birds and the autumn breeze among the leaves. But there was clearly something else in that wood, or, better said, someone else. Suddenly, I fell down onto the ground, a blurry shadow jumping on me and making me stay with my back glued to the hard dirt of the path. I pushed and tried to wriggle out their hold, but the attacker was bigger and stronger than me. Who the hell was that? My heart started to race when I saw my attacker's face, covered in a mask. It was one of those Venetian masks that some people used in the masquerade balls, dark brown with short pheasant feathers on one side. It covered the man's face, because at least I could see that he was definitely a male to the top of his mouth, so I could only see his square chin and his thin lips. Was it still a prank? I couldn't recognize any of my classmates under the mask, but it entered the realm of possibility. But he was strong. He was holding my two wrists under just one of his huge hands. I was almost achieving slipping away from under his weight, but then a punch to my jaw with his bare hand made my head spin. Although I stopped struggling just for a moment, when I focused my sight again, there was something metallic in the corner of my eye. A knife? I started yelling at once, realizing ever struggling was useless against my opponent and started to feel really frightened. I tried to free my arms with all my might, but it was all for naught. My legs too were immobilized under his weight and I couldn't land a single kick, no matter how much I tried. The metallic lint moved up over the man's head and then I could see it clearly. It was a knife, yes, a big, sharp-edged butcher's knife. And the man had raised it with the intention of burying it in my chest. Panicking, I kept on yelling, wiggling and kicking the air. I felt completely helpless. My ears didn't even register the sound of leaves being stepped on and the rustle of clothes when someone grabbed the back of the man's jacket and pushed him to the ground. Still in shock, I breathed shallowly. "Alex, are you okay? Did he hurt you?" The attacker didn't waste a moment and pushed himself up and started running away really fast. Two of my classmates ran after him, while Monty stayed by my side, watching me with wide-eyed concern. "Take my hand. Can you stand up?" I let him help me back to my feet. I was still breathless and felt a sob trying to escape through my throat. I closed my eyes and pushed it down. I wasn't going to cry. I was strong. I wasn't a kid anymore. "Shh, it's all right." The next thing I felt were his arms around my torso and his familiar scent wrapped around me. Relieved, I basked in a feeling of being safe and warm, although I managed to keep my eyes dry. Not that it was easy, thought. The temptation of crying out of nerves was great. But it was my new friend who was hugging me, not my mother, so my pride got to the best of me and I pushed him gently after a moment. "Thank you, Monty. What did you see?" "Well, I was at the fence entering the school where I met Ed and Millard, and then we heard you shoot. We ran here as fast as we could and saw that guy on top of you with a knife in his hand. What the hell, Alex, is what's going on?" I swear I haven't the slightest idea. Our two classmates came back running and out of breath. "Sorry, he was faster than us." "Oh no, don't tell me he escaped." "I'm really sorry. We could catch him." "Did he escape through the main door?" "No, he jumped over the fence. We reached the door and kept running through the woods. We followed him, but he was very fast and we lost sight of him." "What a disgrace. Well, come on, Alex, we must inform the head teacher at once." I nodded and limped back to the school, supporting part of my weight on Monty's arm. I was a bit nervous to go bother the head teacher in his room on a Sunday evening, but I guessed it couldn't be helped. Of course he had to be informed if a masked man attacked one of his pupils inside the school. He made us pass into a small sitting room, cozy and comfortable, and offered us the tea. The sight of my shaking hands, limping foot, and the state of my poor uniform sure gave him a fright and told him something bad had happened. Monty helped me to explain the events, and the head teacher listened to us in silence, frowning. "So that man jumped the fence into the woods, attacked you, and ran away through the same place he had entered, right?" "Well, I didn't see him until I had him already on top of me, so I don't know if he came through the fence or not." The main door of the school ground was closed until this group of boys arrived. "How many of you were there, boy?" "We were about 10, I would say. 3 of my class, counting myself, and a bunch of younger students." "Did you see some suspicious around the door?" "No, but there were parents and also some coachmen bringing the students back." The head teacher waved away that thought. "We are not starting to suspect of our students' fathers and coachmen, are we? The facts are clear that masked men jump over the fence to enter the school without the wood to avoid being seen, with the unfortunate Mr. White here who was in his way. It was obvious a burglar. I will call the police right now, and the doctor will catch him while he is still hiding in town. Go to the dining hall, young man, and have a footman clean that uniform for tomorrow, Mr. White." I nodded. My poor trousers were dirty with mud and dry leaves. Monty and I went back to our bedroom first to wash ourselves a bit. I brushed my trousers the best I could and asked the footman if I could give them to him after dinner to clean. He accepted in exchange for a tip, of course. I sighed relieved. My pocket money was scarce, but at least it would be well spent. "Alex, what happened?" Rick appeared at the door and looked at me from head to toe, startled. I realized that, even though my uniform looked way better than before, I still had mud and leaves in my hair and my shoes were a disaster. Monty came to help, as always, and explained to Rick all about the masked burglar. Rick kept looking at me intently. When Monty finished his story, Rick came closer to me and inspected my wrists. Your wrists are bruised. It's nothing. It doesn't hurt. You have had a rough week. First to fall in the stairs, and now this. Exactly. I suppose you don't think this is a coincidence, do you? I frowned, confused. What do you mean? Both things are not related. Think about it for a moment. First, some unknown student accidentally pushed you down a long and high set of stairs, and now another unknown person attacks you with a knife. It was a burglar. Why would anyone attack me on purpose? What are you implying? Are you sure there isn't any reason for someone to go after you? Don't be ridiculous. It is Alex we are talking about. If it was Damien, perhaps someone would have a grudge over him, but Alex? I reckon you're right. Our other roommate, Damien, walked in that very moment, smirking as always. Where were you? I told Million to look for you, but he couldn't find you. Damien took a bunch of wrinkled banknotes from the inner pockets of his jacket. There were £1 notes and also £5 ones. I guess he had at least £20 just there. That was quite a lot for these times. I was busy earning a bonus from my allowance, you know. It's always nice to have a bit of pocket money. Monty groaned and covered his face with his hands, while Rick and I shared an uneasy look. I don't want to know how you have won all this money. If the teachers find out, I don't want to get involved at all. Damien chuckled and put away the notes carelessly in a drawer. Oh, don't worry about that. They already know. In fact, I guess they're expecting a rematch next Sunday to try to win back all the money they have lost today. Monty groaned louder and shook his head in disbelief. You will never change, will you? You must teach me how to be so good with poker one of these days. Rick's comment surprised the three of us, and I ended up giggling with Damien over it. What? I swear I would use that knowledge in school, but you never know when it can come handy. Damien patted his back, grinning, and seemed about to leave again for the dining hall when he noticed the way I looked. Hey, what's wrong? Did something happen? You fell down again, little bird? And between the three of us, we told him about the events that transpired in the woods. Damien sat down in silence for a moment, frowning. Mates, I agree with Rick. This is not a coincidence. Why? I mean, why would someone attack me? We don't know, but perhaps you could do some research, don't you think? Well, if you two agree, it means there's a chance that it's true. I'll get going to the dining hall. Playing poker always makes me hungry. See you there. And he left without waiting for us, as always. Monty sighed. Okay, what about brushing your hair a bit to take off all that mud and leaves and then going to have dinner? I nodded. I didn't notice before, but I was starving. So that's what we did. I asked them to leave the topic of my tech until the next morning, since I was already too anxious and I really need to relax and rest for the evening. But the next morning, of course, the break was over, and I had to hear Monty's and Rick's weird theories during breakfast and between lessons. At least asked Reggie, who was the servant who asked him to tell you to go down to the hall and search for the non-existent parcel. Reggie was the classmate who spoke to me that evening in the dining hall. But after Damien bullied him to the corridors, he avoided the four of us, and I couldn't blame him. In the end, I approached him at the end of the lessons just to make my two friends shut up about it. The poor guy opened his eyes wide and saucers when he saw me coming closer. He inspected our surroundings and seemed clearly relieved when he checked that Damien was nowhere to be seen. Can I talk with you for a moment? Your friend talked to me already, remember? I don't know anything, so leave me alone. I raised my hands in a surrender gesture. I know. I apologize for Damien. He's, rather overprotective of his mates, we could say. An asshole, that's what he is. And a mad one, for that matter. Yeah, well, I'm sorry. I just want to ask you who was the one who told you to give me the message. The boy deflated all of a sudden. It's true that you were attacked, but but I'm sure there was a mistake here. That's what I think too, but just to be on the safe side, I would like to ask him if there was any hidden reason behind it at all. Of course, I get it. I don't know his name. It was one of the boys who attends to the tables in the dining room sometimes. I met him in the corridor, seemingly coming from the kitchen, and he stopped me and told me what I said to you. Can you point him out to me this evening during dinner? He nodded. I think so. I thanked him and came back with my friends. I told them what Reggie had explained to me, and they seemed more relaxed. Well, a bit. That evening, I waited until everybody was finishing the meal, and then I walked to Reggie's table to ask him about what we agreed on. I'm sorry, but he's not there today. He isn't? No. He attended the tables the first day of school, but I haven't seen him in the dining hall today or during the weekend. Frowning, I came back to our table and told the others. We updated Damien on the events since he wasn't with us that morning when I talked to Reggie. Some lad who was working in the dining hall last week but who is not here now, huh? I think I know who he is. Really? You do? Yeah, he's a new employee, a guy around our age. Don't you remember him? Dark blonde hair, big nose, pockmarked. I realized servants were somewhat invisible to me. They cleaned our bedrooms, served our food, provided towels and bedclothes, but I barely remember their faces. And, according to the expressions on Rick and Monty, their reactions were similar to mine. So, none of the three had noticed the boy or the change in the dining hall waiters. Damien shook his head in disbelief. You guys wouldn't see water if you were in front of the sea. Okay, he's not here this week. He must be ill, or perhaps he's doing the kitchen duties. Or perhaps he's hiding to avoid meeting you, Alex. Oh, come on, again with the conspiracy theories? It's me, alright? Why would someone want to help me? We need to ask that waiter. We can always enter the kitchen and talk to him. Damien frowned and shook his head again. It's not allowed for students. The kitchens and all the servants' area are out of bounds. That's rubbish. I have seen you coming out of the servants' areas more than once. Damien grinned knowingly and leaned back in his chair. Well, I'm not a regular student, am I? I have my own devices anyway. Rules are for sissies. Could you help us to enter the servants' area to interrogate that guy? Damien raised an eyebrow and scoffed. As if passing 3 guys in is not what I would call discreet. Well, don't help just Alex to go inside. You can do that, can't you? Our roommate looked away and then glanced at me through squinted eyes. I don't know. What do I get from this? I don't have much money left, but I can pay you. He at my offer. I already have money. I don't need your coppers, but I have thought of something. Follow me to our bedroom. What? Monty and Rick stood up, but Damien smirked at them. I didn't like that grin at all. Even I, who didn't know Damien very well, could smell trouble in that smirk. You too. Go for a walk. Leave the little bird alone for a while. You don't need to be glued to him the whole time. Perhaps we will even get to teach him to fly. Definitely, I didn't like it, but since I couldn't see any alternative, I followed him back to our bedroom. As soon as I entered the room, Damien closed the door at my heels and pushed me against it. His eyes had a dangerous glint, and I saw in them that time he cornered our classmates in the corridors, and I couldn't help but gulp. Was I going to get beaten? Then he offered me a crook grin again, and I was slightly relieved. You know, the only thing that makes this school bearable is the fact that I get to have some fun. So, as a little reward for helping you, I have something in mind that could be fun. I was getting scared. More scared, because my pulse started beating fast and loud the moment I left the dining hall with Damien. His grin grew wider and more mischievous if possible. It's something small. No need to be frightened. You have never kissed anyone, am I right? What? That's what I want. Your first kiss. He came closer until our chests almost touched. I could hear and feel his breath how close we were. Whoa, stop it. I haven't said yes. True, say it already so I can kiss you. I was so nervous, I couldn't decide what to say or what to do. Was that alright? Of all the things I thought he could ask me to do, that was indeed the lesser one. Because yes, some scenario involving myself doing illegal or forbidden things had crossed my mind. A kiss was... well, he was a guy, right, so it was technically still illegal in these times. But just a kiss? Nothing too wrong with that. Although, the same moment I found myself nodding and Damien getting still closer, a new thought flashed through my mind. Did I really want my first kiss to be with a boy? Too late. His lips found mine, and I closed my eyes. I felt his hands, one in my nape, preventing my escape, and another one in my jaw. At first, apart from his hands, I only noticed his breath, regular and warm against my lips. But after a moment, when I thought that was all and we had finished, he turned his face slightly and his lips opened a little bit. I gasped when the tip of his tongue gave a little lick to my lower lip. And then his tongue slipped inside my mouth and I felt my brain melt. For some moments, I stopped being aware of what exactly was happening or what Damien was doing, because his whole mouth seemed to be inside of mine right then, and as if his lips, tongue, teeth, and salvia had invaded me. For some minutes, I left myself go with the flow of the moment, while our surroundings, the bedroom, the school, seemed to vanish. Then my knees buckled, and I found myself grabbing Damien's shoulder for support. He laughed breathingly against my mouth, and I felt really stupid. I was sure I was red as a ladybug right then. He watched me with intensity, with his hands still around my face. You sure felt it? It was still more fun than I imagined. He leaned forwards again and gave me a short peck on the lips. Was it that good for you, His left hand left my jaw and slid down my back to rest on my waist. You even moaned. I'm curious about what delicious sounds you would make if you kept going. What? What do you mean? I didn't feel very coherent right then. Damien dragged his lips down my jaw and above my neck, an exciting and strong shudder that ran through my whole body. I mean, that we could do a bit more. We have the bedroom to ourselves for a little while, after all. His lips found my neck, and I started to tremble violently. Alright, that was... My brain refused to cooperate, but that was starting to be more than a simple kiss. Da wir wissen, was passiert, wenn wir sagen, accept Damien's advances. Allerdings hatten wir auch schon die Entscheidung, push him away. Aber ich denke, wenn wir accept Damien's advances nehmen, kommen wir wieder auf die Richtung zu Damiens Weg. Deswegen würde ich sagen, push him away. So. Despite my clutched mind, I gathered all my strength of will and pushed Damien softly away. He chuckled and let me go, stepping backwards to give me some space. His cheeks were as red as apples, and I guess they look very similar, if not worse. I tried to smooth my disheveled hair, self-conscious. Damien didn't say anything else, but he kept watching at me with half a smile dancing on his lips. I will go to the toilet to refresh a bit, and I left as fast as I could. The usual queue of the bathroom was starting to form, and I was glad I had woke up early that morning to have a quick shower and avoid the evening queue. I ran downstairs to the ground floor toilet to the next to the hall, and I found it empty as I knew it would be. When I opened the tap, I noticed my hands were trembling out of control. I breathed deeply once, twice, and splashed some cold water on my face. Much better. Despite feeling thoroughly confused, I decided I was able to avoid thinking about what had just happened and focused on what came next. I avoided looking at my face in a mirror thought. I rushed upstairs again and lingered in the corridor outside my door until I finally saw Monty and Rick coming my way. Alex, are you okay? I nodded. I didn't want to be asked about what Damien had done or said, so I started talking instead. I'm going to go to the servants area now. Really? Right now? I want to go with you. But Damien said he could pass us together. I'll be back soon and I'll tell you everything I found out, alright? He sighed. It's not alright. I don't trust Damien that much. What if he leaves you there and you don't know how to come back to the dorms? Have some faith, would you? Damien appeared at the threshold, glaring at Monty with annoyance. Let's go already, then, before we grow old and die of boredom in this damned school. He grabbed my forearm, not very carefully, and started walking with long strides, pulling me with him. Hey, Damien! We want Alex back in one piece, you hear me? Damien waved goodbye without stopping or turning, and I did my best to not trip over my injured ankle, and he kept his pace. I retrieved my arm from his grip. I felt uneasy in Damien's company, and I couldn't look at him in the face. After turning the corridor twice, the string of students started to be more scarce until we found ourselves in a completely empty and silent corridor. If we were still in the same wing as I thought, we had left the bedrooms behind us. Looking around to check if there was someone inside, Damien opened a plain door that led to a narrow staircase, and we trotted downstairs in a semi-darkness. The stairs died in a small hall with 3 simple-looking doors. Damien pushed the front one without hesitance, and I followed at his heels. We found ourselves inside the kitchen of the school. It was huge, split in different small rooms with a huge fireplace in the central one, and a long table in front of it, where some servants were sitting, doing sewing tasks or just chatting in front of a cup of tea. Hey, you! What are you doing here? I jumped at hearing a boarding man addressing us in a clear bad mood. There's no card game this evening, is there? Nobody has told me. If there's one, I want in. I need to recover what I lost yesterday. Relax, Max. I'm only showing around my friend here. The man barely glanced at me, and instead showed a threatening fist in front of Damien's face. Are we the fucking London Bridge to be shown around? If the head teacher finds out you enter here whenever you want, he will yell at us, you know? As in a magic trick, there was suddenly a £1 note in Damien's finger, and he pushed it inside of the man's apron pocket before anyone else saw. He placed his index of his lip as if asking silence, and winked to Max. Then he turned to the other people in the kitchen, grabbing my elbow. Max, leave the kid alone. Come here, Damien, and introduce your new friend to us. Damien smiled politely, very different from his usual mischievous smirk. Mrs. Hutchinson, this is Alex. He started this term in St. Michael's. The woman, obviously the main cook, nodded fondly at Damien, offering me just a short look over. She was a plump woman in her 50s, and her brown eyes shone warmly. Good to meet you, young man. I hope you're enjoying your meals here. Are you a senior student as well? I hesitated. I didn't feel as a senior at all, but I was in my last year before university, so I nodded with a shy smile. She ignored me and turned to watch Damien closer. You had a huge growing spurt this summer, Damien. You look like a proper young gentleman already. No wonder that good-for-nothing laser fell for you. The corner of my lips twitched at those words, and I glanced at Damien with the corner of my eyes. He just shrugged and kept smiling at the cook with a warm smile. You boys grow so fast. Where is that cute skinny brat who used to slip into my kitchen to steal my cherry pies? Damien chuckled at that and opened his arms. He is right here. Do you have any? The woman giggled and turned to look for something in a shelf hidden back curtain. You know, I always have some cherry pie for you. Here you are, but share it with your friends, okay? My roommate took the delicious-looking pie with evident glee. Mrs. Hutchinson, you are the best. Please marry me. We could run away together and get married by that old vicar in town before dawn. It would be so romantic, don't you think? That made the woman lean over with laughter. She ended up hitting Damien on his arm with it disclosed before my roommate could dodge her. The whole scene made me want to ask a bunch of personal questions to my roommate. This wasn't the guy I knew at all. Stop teasing her, Damien. The one who had spoken was one of the girls sitting at the table in front of the warmth of the hearth. She was perhaps 25, and smiled at Damien with what I recognized from my own experience as an elder sister look. Hi, Connie. Can I ask you something? He sat on a stool in front of the girl and lowered his voice. We were looking for one of the new employees, a guy our age, pockmarked, sandy hair. Ah, that is Mark. I have barely talked with him, to be honest, but it seems he has been sick lately. Ask that girl over there, Sarah. She arrived to the school with him, and I think they talk to each other more often. She gestured to a sour-faced girl at the other end of the long table, and we thanked her and approached Sarah. I was surprised to notice her brown hair was short, cut just below her ears, and her makeup couldn't hide it completely. It was strange. Why would a young woman cut her hair as short as a boy's? I looked around, and all the other girls in the kitchen wore their hair braided or in a bun under their white caps. The girl's bitter expression didn't vanish when she noticed our presence in front of her, rather the opposite. Damien offered her a charming smile and a nod. Sarah, right? I don't think we have met before. The girl remained silent. You know, I'm slightly worried about a guy who attended the table the first week. I talked with him just a bit, and I wanted to invite him to one of our poker matches. But he suddenly stopped appearing at the dining hall, and now I hear he's been sick. That's an excellent excuse, I thought. I would never come up with something like that. The girl stared at Damien with a stern face and didn't say a word. Could you tell us about his condition? Is he going to be okay? Yeah, I think so. I haven't gone to see him. Thought so. What do I know anyway? And she spat to the fire. I jumped back, surprised. Ah, alright then. I hope she gets well very soon. He grabbed my arm and made me turn, and he towards the door we had entered through. He waved goodbye in general and offered me a piece of the cherry pie while we climbed back to the service stairs.